This show is brought to you by DF Studios Limited. Whether you're a business owner or entrepreneur, DF Studios will guide and assist you on the best ways to promote your brand digitally, in addition to creating visitor and customer generating content like blogs, social media posts, videos, and even podcasts like this one you're listening to right now. Visit dfstudiosltd.com or hit up info@dfstudiosltd.com for more info. All right, so we're moving to Netflix now for a bit. Let's talk about Is That Black Enough for You?
Right.
We're gonna keep this
Yeah.
one short and sweet because
Right.
really there isn't that much to talk about, but in it's not in a bad way. That's the best way I could really describe it.
Right. Yeah, I'll say it has my main problem with it. It has a singular thesis that they just kind of repeat a lot. But then they just show a bunch of examples of black cinema, black Hollywood, behind the scenes black stories. The one thing I didn't know about is that Robert Downey Sr. thing. I didn't know that at all. Like that's a
Oh,
new
okay,
thing.
Yeah,
okay. You
that
you
did
you,
I.
you you never
Yeah.
saw you never saw Putney Swoop.
No, I know the movie. I know his career, but I didn't know that I didn't make that connection with the bit that
Tropic
Robert Downey
Thunder.
did in Tropic Thunder.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
I didn't
Oh,
make that connection at all. I was like, oh shit, that's a reference. I would. That's actually pretty clever though.
right,
Yeah, well,
right.
as I say, I get my opportunity to make my dumb joke, right? So, yeah, we talking about Atlanta ending, which is doing McDuffie's concept of Saint Elsewhere from Tommy Westfall hypothesis. Tommy Westfall, I'm sorry, Saint Elsewhere starred Denzel Washington, which also had Malcolm X had Angela Bassett, and we're doing 6 degrees of separation.
Yep,
Angela Bassett
yep,
was
yep, yep.
one of the stars of Black Panther, right?
Uh-huh, uh-huh.
Uh,
It's all
and
connected, man.
it's another interesting link. There's a bunch of black people in all these movies, and
Yep.
yeah, but this documentary it's good, but it's very repetitive, right? If you're familiar with all the material, it's not new to you, but I'd imagine it's for people who are not familiar with the material. They only got
Yeah.
one young person to come through for this, if you're Zendaya,
Yeah,
um,
yeah.
to make a reference because like yeah, she was just referencing Diana Ross and like she's clearly pulling her style I think from a couple of those people
Mm-hmm.
in terms of just small influences. But I about it is just history stuff. Lawrence Fishburne talking, Larry Fish, Sam Jackson talking. Yeah, it was good. Whoopi Goldberg they get to come through. Yeah, they get all the people to come through.
Yeah.
I don't know solid.
Right.
For what it was, but it didn't do anything that interesting in terms of like a general like thesis or anything like that. Most of it is stuff or stuff we did. We talk about they make mention of the movie Nipsey Hussle is constantly referenced. Which was referenced in Atlanta, that great episode of Atlanta. The spook who stood by the door, they did that.
Uh-huh.
Yeah,
Yeah,
okay,
yeah,
they
yeah.
cover everything.
I like that. I like that more. It's like, ah, okay, yeah, yeah. I see you. I see you. Yeah.
Yeah, you
Yeah,
go
well,
ahead. So,
what,
yeah,
alright, what it shows about in a nutshell, right? It's technically a film essay that we see here, right? From legendary, I was gonna say iconic, but legendary, historian and critic, Elvis Mitchell, right? And he's just talking about the period, 1968 to 1978, right? Which he called like a watershed period in terms of black cinema, right? He goes way back, showing how black actors and actresses were portrayed on screen, mostly from a white and racist perspective. You know what I mean? Really, really uncomfortable stuff for that. But I mean that is part of film history, right? Like it or not, right? And just the slow and unsteady transition now into like the 60s, where there were these big films now that featured black actors now, and they were in a less white perspective, a less racist light, I should say, right? But then from 1968 onwards now, that was when black directors really got their chance now, where big studios like Warner Brothers gave them opportunity now, and they were able to craft great films, whether it's Cotton Comes to Harlem, or The Learning Tree from Gordon Parks,
yeah,
or Shaft, you know what I mean, from Gordon Parks Jr. um Superfly, Sweet Sweetback's Badass Song from Melvin Van Peebles, and just a list, just a laundry list of films, right? And yeah, this is what this film covers, right? As you mentioned, Ricardo, there are some great interviewees. You have Samuel Jackson, you have Billy D. Williams, Zendaya makes her appearance, Glenn Turman is there. They even got, should mention, Harry Belafonte is there,
yeah.
Lawrence Fishburne, Whoopi Goldberg, the great Charles Burnett who directed Killer Sheep, a masterpiece in my opinion. You all should check this out. They also got Gordon, like I forget the man name like in real life,
Yeah,
but they
from
actually
Sesame
got
Street. Yeah,
Gordon from Sesame Street.
yeah.
Because yeah, I will never forget though when I saw the trailer for Willie Dynamite, I was like, oh shit, that's Gordon though, like Gordon playing a pimp. It's just you know what I mean in that show. It was hilarious, but I still need to see that movie, right? But anyway, and yeah, that's pretty much what it is, right? But I do agree with you, Ricardo. It doesn't do anything too different or new, right? It is stuff that we are familiar with. I would say if you're familiar with like cinema of the 60s and 70s, or if you're at least marginally familiar with black cinema and whatnot, right? Well, African American film, I should say, right? Yeah, then this stuff you'll be familiar with it, right? But I would give the show credit that there are some gems there. Like they mentioned some films that I kind of hear about, but I was like, okay, now I know what the plot is. I want to see for myself. Like case in point, 3D Hardware, right? Where they got I think it's Fred Williamson, I think Jim Brown and Jim Kelly, right? I don't think Jim Kelly was in it. Sorry, I don't think
Right.
Jim Brown was in it, but somebody else, right? And it's about these guys going up against this group of new Nazis who want to put this chemical in the water. This chemical is designed specifically to kill African Americans, right?
Right.
And I like how Elvis says, when he was young, he thought that was kind of funny, but then his dad taught him about the Tuskegee the Tuskegee experiments, right? It's like, okay, that kind of puts it in a different light here. I shouldn't really laugh at that, right? But what the show does well too is kind of show you the conditions in terms of what these filmmakers had to deal with, right? Because yeah, we might look at it like, oh, okay, Sidney Poitier did a Western, Buck and the Preacher, pretty decent film by the way, right? All right, Black Western, okay, was a big deal, right? But then you have to kind of think about it in terms of well, prior to that, when was the last time that we did see Black Western, Black cowboys on screen, right? When was the last time, right? And it's just all these like social and political conditions that led into these films being made, right? Also like how it explores the term black exploitation, right? And really address the fact that yes, it was these white-owned film studios that more or less made these films, made a profit of it. And as this Black Panther leader said, the extras and the actors don't really make much money off of it, right? But it's funny, right? But it's funny for me now because yeah, those are the films that are considered to be masterpieces in terms of African American cinema, right? So it's like that, right? Um, so yeah, it does cover a lot within its 2 hour plus runtime though. But I think for me, what kind of holds it back slightly for me though is the film essay aspect of it.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, it really does sound like it's this long thesis about black cinema and that, and it's all leading up to this big, it has like a hypothesis and it comes to this big conclusion, which I do like though, and it well without spoiling anything, it does include it's something to do with Sidney Poitier, the films that he directed. That's all I'll say, right? But yeah, it does have a sort of a film school vibe to it, though. So I imagine
Yeah.
who casual viewers might, I don't know, might just find it kind of dull or kind of boring. Like, all right, you tell them this thing, okay, all right, because sorry, some people just don't want to be, I don't want to say preach, but don't want to be taught certain things. They want to kind of
Well,
see it and
I just think,
experience it for themselves. Now.
yeah, I just think that they had to just say something new because it wasn't really saying anything per se, other than, oh, well, look at all these great films. Like, yeah, they are great films. Like, I had no problem with any of that, but you had to do
Yeah,
something with it as the conceit because, again, with stuff that we already know, as it is now. That was always my only issue with it. But it wasn't like a bad thing or anything like that. It's just you had to do more than that. That is all I'll say. Um,
exactly. And last thing, last no. I felt like we could have like a proper resolution or conclusion because
right.
where it stops off is more like, all right, like there was like after 1978. No, that was when that movement kind of stopped, and we had to wait a while for the next big black filmmaker to come through to show his or her perspective on the black experience, right? They had to wait a while. They had to wait a while for that, right? But we in a spot now where I mean there's lots of black filmmakers who are doing that, who are showing their perspective, right? So I'm not sure if he's trying to say that there's a lull now or if there will be a lull to come when it comes to content like this. But I think
Right.
that we're in good hands, right? But that's not to say that um that's not to say that there won't be some sort of drop-off point at some point in time. I think that as long as the black experience is, and I mean, it'll always be a thing, right? There will always be filmmakers and screenwriters and actors and actresses who will come out and, showcase that or highlight that, right? So, but again, I just wish that he came to like a proper conclusion to all of this, right? Because yes, I understand within the lens of okay, it was the 60s and the 70s, but now in the 2020s, and it's like I just wanted to, I just wish that he could have connected the two eras properly, right? But
Right.
I
Yeah.
mean, for
Well.
what
Okay.
it is, it's I still enjoyed it for what it is. I enjoyed it for what it was. There's a similar to a film that myself, you, Ricardo, and someone who you'll get into in a minute covered. Woodlands Dark and Days Bewitched, right?
Right.
There's tons of films there that highlighted in this movie here, in this documentary, I should say, that I want to see for myself, right? I want to do a deep dive and just watch these films, and not to be like, oh yeah, I saw Coolie High and I saw Ganja and Hess, but more like, okay, I really want to watch these films and just think about, okay, the era where these films were made. What spurred these actors or writers and directors to make a film like this, right? And compare that to yeah, American history and world history. That's
Right.
how I want to look at it. From I want to look at it from that perspective. Not
Yeah.
like, oh
Yeah.
yeah, I saw Gordon as a pimp in that one film. I don't want it to be like that, right? But yeah,
Yeah. So
this
that.
is this is absolutely solid, man. I absolutely recommend. I absolutely enjoy this. I recommend it. You do check it out. It's on Netflix right now. Rating wise, I'm gonna give this a strong 4 out of 5, man. Despite the film SC styled it, which I know will be hit or miss for some viewers. There's a lot to take away from this though, and yeah, you could just feel it's a really genuine film. At the end of the day, it's a genuine look at an era that kind of I mean, it is part of film history, yes, but it's one of those things that goes unnoticed now, and especially like what all the drama and BS that took place before in terms of black representation on film, right? So yeah,
Well, I was
absolutely worth checking
thinking.
out.
Well, I was thinking about that in relation to what you were saying earlier about how, um, yeah, you were saying how like the thesis, like I think Ricardo said, like the thesis of of the stock seems to be these are all great movies, and well, we know that, but here's the
Right.
thing, um, not everyone. Like I feel like that's one of the, especially as someone who's like on the front lines of like film education and film literacy, especially in the United States, there are so many blind spots.
Yes.
Like there's a lot of information that we think and we just take for granted, right? So like I finally got around, for example, to Summer of Soul, and
Right.
I'm watching this movie and I'm like thinking about how almost every musician featured in it was someone that was like I either heard about or listened to growing up, because it was very part like that kind of all that music and that culture was very much part of my upbringing. But then realizing that there are a lot of people, either younger people or even like white America, that doesn't quite intercede, and like it's almost like culturally whole different landscape that doesn't know these things.
Yeah.
So especially since again we are dealing with chronic cine literacy problems, like you're talking about a documentary that talks about films from the 60s and 70s, and I like interact with people that when they talk about old movies, I have to remember that they're probably talking about the 1980s.
Right.
Yeah, that's
So
true.
the only counterpoint is there's a good chance that like it depends on like, and I would have to see the doc for myself, but it depends at what level. Like if this is like an introduction to this era and these kind of films, okay, that's probably where this is coming from.
Yeah.
I think
That overlaps with what my final point I was going to make about it, which is it's perfect as a YouTube video essay, right? If you're not familiar with this material at all, it's kind of perfect for you. Like that was
Mhm,
that was the
Yes.
kind of point I was going to make. It's perfect for like a younger person. That's why
Especially
I
since-
really felt if anything they should have probably like make reference to like more younger black stars
Mm,
to talk about this maybe. Because again, the only young person there was Zendaya. Like I felt they could have,
okay.
if anything, they could have interstitial like talking heads with younger upcoming people. So we could have see, all right, it's Zendaya, she's pretty popular, she brings. But then somebody like say Coco Jones or whoever, like any young black star or Amanda Stelberg or whoever it is.
yeah,
You get my point,
yeah,
right?
yeah.
Like
Mm.
something like
Yeah,
that.
make
I felt
it
if
clear
anything,
make it clear
um,
that this is like make it clear that this is kind of aimed as a more of an introductory
right.
piece for younger people. Yeah, especially
Yeah.
since like you're right in comparing it to something like the YouTube, because YouTube video essays are increasingly, and this is frustrating, but oh well, YouTube essays are increasingly how a lot of younger people are being exposed to film history.
Right. Pretty
Like
much.
that's
Yeah.
how most of them, because like film school is so rare, and it's not like film studies curricula are really something that gets taught as early as like high school or younger in the
Right.
stateside. I don't know anywhere like elsewhere, but like stateside, you don't really start having the option to take classes that are just about film until maybe
Exactly. Because
college.
as far as I know, in the American system, you just have the AV club. I mean,
Yes.
that's what you have.
Yeah.
You don't really have
Essentially.
you're right, effectively, right.
So anyone's pre-college education on film is like kind of YouTube essay type stuff. And if like you get if a major streamer is putting out like introductory documentaries to like certain historic areas, oh absolutely, let's do that. I would need to like again give it a watch myself before final, but like it definitely at least sounds like the conceit of it like sounds really intriguing to me.
Right.
Yeah. All right. Well, Ricardo, final thoughts on Rita.
Yeah, final thought. Yeah, I'd still give it a pretty high score, all things considered. It's still very well made and put together reasonably well. I just felt they could have just framed it in a better light, because I was thinking, oh, this was going to be something really interesting and deep and so on. So I'm like, it isn't, but it's still good. I enjoyed it. But I learned a few things from it, to be honest. Like me personally with it again, and I kind of came to the conclusion, I'm a little too old for it. To be honest, it is a 101 class documentary, but this can be perfect for like if you're introducing some film course or something like that. Yeah, it's like a perfect doc to reference with that. Like it does this so well, and it collects all the knowledge. One movie I was not aware of at all is I forget the name of the title, but it's this long title that was basically this experimental film.
Oh, you know,
slip of mind.
let me find it for a sec. Just wait for a sec.
That was interesting. Like I was like, okay, this I don't know anything about this guy as a director. Like I know who he is, but I don't know. As a film director, I didn't understand. I don't know his career, and it was a little too out there. But it was like
I found the title for it, right? So the way how I knew about it is actually through the Criterion Collection. Like I just see this name popping up, so I'm gonna read it. Forgive me for butchering it. Symbio Psycho Taxiplasm.
Yes.
Take one.
Right. Take one. Right.
Yeah. I want to see that. Like no.
Yeah, you realize it's a proto experimental film. You're like, oh, that's real clever and interesting, dude. So stuff like that. And like it's a couple of things I learned. It's not to say I went into it, I didn't come out with anything, but it was still like that. Rating, I'll give it like a nice 8 out of 10. I think it's still really well made for what it is. I felt they could have just tied it together to the present a little better. Because again, you're correct. It stops in a weird spot. But yeah, overall, it's still quite with everyone's time. All things considered.
Right. So, Summer, just to close things off, what were your thoughts on Is That Black Enough for You? Well, you have the floor, you review it.
Well, I think I come on the side of defense for the noobs out there. Like the folklore documentary that opened my eyes to so many things, even though I'd seen some of these horror films. With this one, I don't have the academic background you guys have in film history, so I actually took away a lot more from this than you guys would.
Nice.
One of the things
that's a great thing, actually. That's a great thing. Yeah.
Yeah, so I guess it would be more because my movie knowledge is very much based on my own just watching watching movies and that kind of pop culture osmosis thing that happens over the years. Sure. Unless I seek out these documentaries and stuff, I don't have the like I said, the academic background you guys have. So for me, it was an eye opener in terms of like one of the things I found super interesting was how Black cinema basically invented the music soundtrack. The movie soundtrack, sorry. I thought that was such an amazing thing. And you don't think of it, you never really see those connections because nobody talks about them until somebody makes something like this, and I do agree that I wish they had younger artists that they covered a wider spectrum. I felt like it did tend to cover a certain era and stop. Maybe they needed to do like a second part because I guess it would go too long. It does feel like it comes to a very abrupt ending. However, I did appreciate the stuff that I learned from it, and then just to hold it up as a mirror to how much quote unquote white cinema has taken from it, taken from Black creators and stuff to make their own versions that we grew up watching and never really questioned as coming from another place or being inspired by black creators. So for instance, just the whole idea when he says he talks about John Travolta's Saturday Night Live and disco being black.
Fever.
Yeah, that black
But yeah,
music.
that was a great moment, though. I
And
was
he
like,
says
what?
that
That's
every
great.
generation has to have their Eminem, and their Elvis. And that kind of blew my mind because I never, ever thought of John Travolta's swagger as drawing from that culture and from those films of that time. So it for me, I took a lot more from it than you guys would because I didn't have the background knowledge you guys have of a lot of these films. And I appreciated it on that level.
Well, nice, nice, nice. Well, well, that's great to hear, though, and I do hope that you'll at least seek out some of these films as well, right?
Absolutely,
Yeah.
absolutely. I was making a list as I was going. So there are a few films, like some of the stuff I've seen, of course. And by the way, when I was younger, I thought my dad was Shaft, so that's funny because my stepdad looks a lot like him, in my opinion. But
Mm,
yeah, just I was making a list going along of some of the films and the way those films have influenced the action films that came after from like I said, white cinema. I'm really interested in going back and watching some of these for the first time and some again as an adult.
right, right. Well, what would you rate this film then?
Overall, I would say for me it's like a 7 out of 10. I got a lot out of it, so I guess that's why I appreciated what it brought to the table for somebody like me who went in with not like a novice, not a lot of background on any of this. So I would give it a 7 out of 10.
All right, nice, nice, nice.